Welcome to We Are Venomaniacs, the Venom site's official podcast for all your Symbiote news, reviews, and point of views. I'm Tyler, the #1 Agent Venom fan, and if you say you're a bigger fan, you're a liar. Then we have my friend Carlos, who before
wait. Well, I'm sorry. Can we speed this up? I got places to be.
All right. So here we have Carlos,
got Ryan.
who before this podcast started literally told me I've never heard of this Chip guy before. So say hi, Carlos.
It's true, he did.
Hi, Chip. Welcome to the show.
And then
you got my name right, so that's cool.
And then we have, of course, Mr. Aaron, who is our one American that we're legally obligated to have on this podcast. So,
Yes, well, there's one person on here that needs to not know what they're talking about, so I'm happy to be here. So
how American
awesome.
of you. So today we have a very special guest. It's you know the Venom boys who would Ryan and Donnie, but here we have the Venom man, the symbiote expert himself, Mr. Chip Zdarsky.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here to clear up any misconceptions with regards to Venom that the Venom boys may be spreading.
Oh yes, yeah. We had Donnie on like when we first start off, like when the run first started, but now he's gotten a little bit too big for our britches, so
So wait, sorry, are you saying I'm not big enough?
Well, I mean, when we're talking about Venom, I mean,
basically Donnie hasn't been back on because Donnie has very little to say about Venom.
Oh, that is true.
I think we all know that. You could have me on every week, and I'll just be hitting you with new Venom facts.
Right, of course.
We're here for
Sounds
that.
Excellent.
100%. So,
did you know his tongue is a separate symbiote?
Is it? God,
yeah.
Well, it's now canon, so.
Yeah. Canon. All right, so
just a sample.
Mr. Zdarsky, for our friends like Carlos here who don't know who you are, why don't you introduce yourself?
Are you seriously getting me to do the job of introducing myself?
Well,
is that what's happening here?
I'm just saying for our fans who are not in the know, just because it's kind of casual if you ask me, but
why don't you do me a favor and you list 3 books I've worked on.
All right, you worked on Sex Criminals as the artist. You've worked on Spectacular Spider-Man.
All right.
And then you've worked on Daredevil currently and Invaders. And
all right,
Marvel
there you go. There you go. All right. That's all you had to do. So
you're lucky because you actually have a Wikipedia page, unlike Donnie Cates. So that kind of helped us out here. So.
You have to get to a certain level for that.
Of course, but he's always asking about it, like in his podcast. Like, like some guys, it's like some days he's just asking for us to make him like a Wikipedia page. But that's one thing you got over him at least.
I mean, the one thing about Donnie is he's very self-assured and he doesn't beg of the public for much, right?
Right. Of course.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah. Fucking Donnie.
All right.
All right. So
let's just get right into your symbiote experience then in the books. Because you've written some Venom. You've written some total of, let me count here, about 6 books with Venom in them.
Yeah.
Really? That's actually more than I thought.
Yeah.
There's You wrote Howard the Duck briefly, where Flash Thompson as Venom Space Knight appeared for a total of 2 issues, maybe 7 panels. So
all of the research, quality research.
Yeah, that is true.
Yes.
So what was that like, having to tackle this whole new status quo of Venom Space Knight for your long run of Howard the Duck?
Well, you know what? I mean, I completely forgot about that until you mentioned it. And even as you were talking about it, I was like, no, that's not true. But then I was like, oh, no, it was true. So really, that's the extent of how I felt putting Venom in that new status quo in Howard the Duck. Basically, I wrote the Guardians in Howard the Duck, and somebody said to me, oh, guess what? Venom's part of it. I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. And they're like, oh, no, don't worry. Venom's different now. And I'm like, okay, then I guess he has to be in there. And so I put him in.
Yeah, I did notice that he doesn't get to be on the cover with the rest of the Guardians.
that wasn't my call.
Right.
To be fair, that was the artist Joe Quinones's call.
Very good artist.
Yeah. So,
yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So Tyler is a huge Flash fan, and in
100%.
Howard the Duck issue 9, you made a pretty big revelation about someone related to Flash.
Big retcon in the Spider-Man community.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, I think that was my first official retcon.
Yeah. So Peter Parker has Aunt May, and then Flash Thompson has Aunt Leia.
Yeah, Leia Thompson, the actress from Howard the Duck and Back to the Future.
Right. So there's one more person that you could do. There's a person that plays Valkyrie now. That's another Thompson we could have him, related to down the line, baby.
This is true, and I actually got to explain to Leah Thompson that she was Flash Thompson's aunt.
Oh.
Okay.
And her first question was, "Who is Flash Thompson?"
Yes, sir.
And then I had to explain, and I think she was a little put off by he was initially a bully, because that's just not how the Thompson family rolls. But I reassured her that he became Venom, and of course, Ms. Thompson knows everything about Venom.
Of course.
And so she was like, "Oh, great! So he became the world's greatest superhero." I'm like, "Sure, if you want to take it that way, that's fine." So she was quite pleased to know that in continuity, Flash Thompson was a worthy inheritor of her name.
I'm glad she thinks so highly of Agent Venom. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. She dropped the agent. She's just like, to me, he'll always just be Venom. that's word hand to God. That's what she said to me, and I was a little suspect, but then she rolled up her pant leg, and there's a super tiny Venom tattoo.
Did you feel like you were going to get any blowback from that decision to retcon that into Spider-Man history?
I don't know if there's any anti-Leah Thompson fans out there. People like, "Oh, there's no fucking way. There's no fucking way Leah fucking Thompson is Back to the Future."
No way, dude.
They both have reddish hair. It made a lot of sense to me at the time.
So just a few things to note about us. I am a diehard Eddie Brock fan. Tyler and Carlos, they're the big Agent Venom fans.
I still like Eddie. I still love Eddie.
Eddie too.
Still.
I like Eddie as well.
I mean, I suppose, but I'm the guy who read all of Remender's Agent Venom, and every single issue I was like, what is this bullshit? Where's Eddie Brock? Flash Thompson's garbage. That was me.
And yet you read every issue. I did. That's a true comics fan.
Yes, sir. I did. Every single one. I got all the variants. I buy every single piece of merchandise. I'm the highest Venom shill
Aaron
you can
has
even think of.
what we like to call a problem. So
yes, yeah, I've bought too many Venom things just while I'm here at home just hanging out. I just bought so many books and statues and things like that. And
so let me ask you a question.
Sure.
What is it about Venom that has you in so deep?
I think it's honestly just the abs and the tongue.
You created an entire persona around the tongue.
Oh yeah,
of a fictional character.
Oh yeah,
frankly, that's pretty cool. That's not even a judgment call.
Right.
I'm like, if you are going to focus on a fictional character, abs and tongue is a pretty good criteria, I think.
I mean, go ahead, Aaron.
Hello.
Yep.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I can hear.
All right. Well, it seems Aaron is cut out for a second. He might want to go check his internet. We're Americans, am I right?
Yeah.
So
I probably just got overwhelmed with all the Eddie Brock talk.
Yeah,
Brock talk. Why did you call this Brock talk?
It's just Venomaniacs. It's like Animaniacs.
All right, it's just a suggestion.
No, we'll take into consideration for sure.
Yeah. So Tyler, we actually did skip about how we got Chip on here because that's a pretty funny story.
That's true.
Would you two like to share how we found you in this circumstance, please?
Yeah, as you know,
as
you might know, there's a little thing going on right now, worldwide. Well, it's not a big thing, but and this
Venom fever, baby. Oh wait, no, fever. You're talking about the other thing.
Yeah, no, I mean
this virus thing that
not the Venom-related virus. That's coming later.
No.
That's not coming later.
Yes.
There's a virus in the Venom comics coming later, but for now we have a different sort of virus to deal with, and some comic shops are kind of in trouble because they got to close down, and no comics are being shipped out. But some good-hearted individuals have started some charities for comic stores, and there was one that was #Canucks for Comics. And
woo.
Good old Chip here decided to chip in.
I see what you did there.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, so what you said was you were going to basically sell your body to all of these other like podcasts.
Yeah, and
you've said like online that you're pretty much packed now, and you've said you've done how many podcasts so far?
Yeah, I sold my body, and I'm pretty much packed now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. I've kind of lost track. I don't know. Maybe I capped it off 10, 12 podcasts. Once I started getting requests that were, "Hey man, I don't have a podcast, but I'd love to interview you and maybe start a podcast based on it." Like, okay, all right, I need to stop this. And like, yeah, once you open up those direct messages, you get a lot of weird shit. Frankly.
Right. Well, I'm sort of surprised that you accepted ours, but
hey, you're legit.
Oh
yeah,
wow,
legit.
We're gonna
we've this is the largest amount of right. Yeah. Oh yeah, like this is the largest amount of folks we've had in a podcast, and we usually get maybe around 100 viewers, but we're very happy to have you here. So
very happy to be here.
Thanks.
So yeah, you bought and paid for me. Now what do you want from me?
Well, might as well get right back into the comic talk then. So,
okay.
I'm actually very curious as to what Venom appearances I've written.
Well, all right. Well, we are almost halfway through the list. So.
Wow.
Yeah. So we've talked about Howard the Duck, but then after Flash lost the symbiote, you wrote him very briefly about how he missed having the symbiote in Spectacular Spider-Man when Betty Brant goes to talk about him, with him. So yeah, and how was that writing Flash, lamenting about his loss of the symbiote?
These are like 1 or 2 panels, and we're just asking.
Look, this was at least 3 pages, Aaron.
You know what? I really dug writing that scene because whenever you get a chance to write kind of the original crew, like Betty and Flash, from the original run, it carries a bit of weight and importance to it. And I wanted to kind of expand on the Flash stuff a bit more in my run, but I also knew that Dan Slott was going to be doing stuff with him over in Amazing. Mm-hmm. So I basically just had that little window to kind of get in a Flash appearance. So yeah, it's kind of like, I kind of treated it like a breakup, like losing the symbiote. And that is the story of those 2 panels.
All right.
3 pages. 3 pages
so
at least.
You wrote that, right? So you wrote that knowing that Flash was going to die at that point, or did you just know he was going to become anti-Agent Venom, or
I forget when I originally signed up to write Spectacular, I went to New York and had a lunch meeting with the editor Nick Lowe and Dan Slott, in which Dan told me the next 1.5 to 2 years of Amazing Spider-Man that he had planned, which was super cool to receive, but also just like, oh fuck, well, I just got a 2 years worth of comics spoiled for me by the writer. That's a downside to this I never really considered before. I can't recall if at that time he'd landed on the idea of Flash dying in the run. So I actually don't recall if I knew that he was going to die in that scene. Possibly. The way I kind of played up that scene, I probably did know that something was going to happen. Dan likes to keep the big things kind of close to the vest. he's like the one guy in the retreats is like, and this person's a secret character, but I'm not going to say who. And we're like, dude, like it's a room of like contracted writers. You're okay here.
Right. Yeah.
So maybe it's possible I didn't know at the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely an interesting peek behind the curtain there, because you don't always get that, and want to know like how far things in advance are planned. But also, it's also having a lot of power in your hands, things you know that you shouldn't be saying.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think it depends on the comic and the stage of the comic as to how far ahead it's planned. Like with Amazing Spider-Man, because it's such a flagship title. Like I think all the higher ups kind of really want to know what's going on for the next couple of years. But those plans tend to get condensed and tighter. Like I've done a few of those Marvel retreats now, like maybe 5 or 6 of them, and it's kind of interesting to hear a pitch like a couple of years ago, and then to hear it more recently, and see how like the looseness of the 2-year plan gets tighter and tighter, and things change based on what's happened in other books, or even in their book, or even based on suggestions alone. So it's really fascinating. Like, you know, this is a Venom podcast, so I'll tell you, like, I was at the first retreat. My first retreat was Donnie's first retreat.
Ooh.
And yeah, it was the first retreat of myself, Donnie, Kelly Thompson, Ed Brisson, and you know, everyone's kind of nervous and stuff. And I remember when Donnie gave his Venom pitch, he's super excited, like he loves Venom so much, and it really came through in the pitch. But it was just so big and wild, and like I think he, you know, at one point somebody was like, and then what happens in year 7? Like this pitch is crazy. It's so big and expansive, and he kind of threw his all in there. At the time when I heard the pitch, I kind of recognized that it was going to do very well. Partly because I could tell from Donnie's enthusiasm, and also just the ideas. That I actually formulated a plan. And it feels illegal, so I didn't do it. Which was I was going to pre-purchase all the art from Venom #1 before it was drawn. Because I've been thinking, like, I should start investing in comic art. Like, you know, that'd be a cool thing. And like, you know, you kind of want to figure out, you know, what's going to be the next hit. It was kind of like insider trading, like hearing that pitch in the room, because you're just like, if I bought all the art for that, I could retire.
Well, right. So like, we didn't want to.
But
So, like,
then
just
I
for a few
realized it
seconds.
was Ryan Stegman drawing it. Forget it.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, speaking of Ryan, him and Donnie have actually sold the first Knoll and Dark Carnage like sketches, I think, like online.
Yeah.
Just like doing the support, which I like seeing, like all of us like supporting each other like during this time, because I'll tell you right now, I am dying not having my books on Wednesday, because what I do is every single Wednesday, wake up at 1 a.m., buy the book online, tweet, this was awful, or like, this was fun, I enjoyed it. And then I go back to bed.
Kind of first world
And then
privileges there.
And then later so right, like in the afternoon, I go back and actually buy the book again. But so right now, I'm just dying not having my books. But supposedly we're going to have them back here, maybe in a few weeks, I think we've heard. So
yeah, hopefully.
hopefully.
I haven't had any word from, so I don't.
Oh.
I mean, I've had word from Image on my Image books, so they've reset kind of print deadlines for upcoming issues. So that's a good sign.
Right. Okay. So let's move on to the next one, Tyler. And what's the next one after Flash? Then we got.
Well, the next one would be in the after the arc where you did Spider-Man Goes Back to the Past. Very, very fun arc, which I enjoyed a lot. We got a little bit of Flash there. It was just Flash being his classic bully in the OG.
Yeah.
And then we fast forward to the future where things have changed a bit, because the alternate future they were in, and you have turns out, I guess Secret Wars still happened in that universe, but it wasn't Spider-Man who turned out to get the symbiote. It was a Mr. Ben Grimm.
Yeah. So I mean, with that, by changing history, I wanted to, you know, have this kind of ripple effect, butterfly effect, or whatever of things that would have been slightly tweaked. And I kind of figured that because Ben Grimm stuck around on that planet from Secret Wars, that maybe he could have received the symbiote instead of Peter Parker.
I guess if Ben needed a change of pants and he just accidentally went to that machine.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, mostly I landed on that because I wanted to give Adam a cool visual to draw. Because sometimes when you're working on a story, you sometimes forget that the artist maybe is getting bored of drawing the same characters over and over again. And being a fan of Adam's, I wanted to basically give him something really cool to draw. So that's what I landed on, and it seemed to work. And then Donnie copied me by making Hulk Venom.
Yes. So we were also going to say that we also think you kind of ripped that off from Robbie Thompson's run on Spider-Man Deadpool, where they're in the future, and and Vision has the symbiote, but it bonds into a thing who's like this giant monster. So yeah,
that sounds incredibly cool. This is my first time hearing about it.
Okay. All right.
Fully just Aaron's opinion. I want to make that clear.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. No, I legit had a clue. If anything, I ripped off the What If issue, where the symbiote ends up taking over a bunch of different characters.
Yeah, the Hulk and Thor, all that.
Yeah. So.
Trust me, when I rip someone off, I'm upfront about it.
Yeah. So our next appearance is Spider-Man 306, was just a flashback, and I think the big one is 310, which I believe you love that one very well for some reason. I think
a bit, maybe
issue 310,
a bit of an award-winning issue, maybe.
Oh, that
one. Now, is it just a coincidence, but this is the only book where you've written Eddie Brock Venom? Do you think there's a correlation between the Eisner Award you won for that and Eddie showing up in that book?
Oh, that's really interesting, actually.
Something to think about.
Yeah, but wow, fuck! I never really considered that before. Like, it's funny because in my Eisner speech, I kind of poked a little bit of fun and said, that all the other nominees should have won.
Right. Yeah.
That I pictured, people voting for me, just reading the ballot and going, "Oh, Spider-Man, I know that character," and then they just check yes, which I'm sure is like 50% of the truth. But now that you mention it, maybe they were just like, oh, single panel of Eddie Brock Venom. All right.
Of course.
Yeah.
So I was going to say the way that this is one of those that I love these like Spider-Man stories. This is like sort of like reminiscent of like the original, like the kid who collects Spider-Man. Then of course we've had a Spider Bite from Tom Taylor. Then we also have the classic story of Leah or Leia by I think that was Peter David, but it was one of those stories where like Spider-Man reacts with kids and like just the environment, and we get to see how other folks see him. So like I think that's pretty much why it won, because it's a pretty good book, and like folks love that concept, and I love those books.
That's very kind, but I had to disagree. It's because I put Eddie Brock Venom in the book.
Of course, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. First time.
I mean that was a fun one to get to do. Obviously, getting the chance to write and illustrate it, meant a lot to me. And like using kids as kind of your way in to Spider-Man feels very natural. Partly because Spider-Man started off as basically a kid, and also. Kids would be the one who'd think Spider-Man is cool no matter what. Even like if adults are like, "Oh, you menace" or whatever, like kids aren't scared of Spider-Man. Kids just see Spider-Man as being like an incredibly awesome superhero.
Can confirm, I was a kid. So.
All right, and you want to do the next one, Tyler? We're almost there. I promise. Almost there.
There's another one. Wow.
Well, you actually there was a passing mention of it because other than that, which the one it was just a drawing of Eddie in that one of classic Venom and that. But in the annual you did for Spectacular Spider-Man, you actually mentioned Eddie Brock during the whole Sin Eater controversy, where J. Jonah Jameson is making fun of the Daily Globe
for hiring this dude called Eddie Brock. Like,
Yeah,
I did not know he was a bad guy. Yeah.
Check your sources, idiot.
that was I really enjoyed that issue. Partly because I worked for 13 years at a newspaper.
Okay.
And it was a newspaper that had a rival newspaper. Like, it was a very heated rivalry.
Okay.
And to kind of get to play that out between the Globe and the Bugle was a lot of fun. Because like, if a reporter fucks up, oh yeah, the other paper's gonna fucking make hay of it, like 100%.
Yeah. So our last one, so our last one is so it's also a pretty big one. So usually I buy floppy books. I rarely buy trades. This is the one story where I bought all of the floppies, all of the variants, and the trade because I loved it so much. Spider-Man Life Story.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, cool, sweet.
Yeah. So
that. So you want to go ahead, Tyler?
Well, I was just gonna say the first two issues, while not symbiote related just yet. I love the fact that I actually got these issues signed by you, the first two issues, when you came to Vancouver.
Cool.
And I was there the day. So first issue, fantastic. And second issue, you gotta sign the comic where you killed my favorite character.
I'm good with
Flash
that.
Thompson.
Whoops.
So what was the decision behind that instead of letting him become his own Agent Venom life story?
What was the decision behind killing Flash Thompson?
Do you just hate me, or what's going on here?
I mean, specifically you, yes.
All right, yes, I figured.
But so part of the trick and the issue with doing Spider-Man life story is the fact that real time actually happens in Spider-Man until he's in his 20s, right? Because you follow him from 15 on to college, and at that point, Marvel was actually treating everything as happening in real time until somebody wisely went, "What the fuck are we doing? Like, this guy's gonna be 60 like before we know it." So it's hard in life story to find spots where time can diverge early on. So issue 1 was tricky, but I really wanted to make sure I opened issue 2 with something that really cemented that this is a different universe. And so Flash dying in Vietnam felt like the way to go. I'm sorry.
Now, you also hurt me because you didn't have Eddie Brock in it.
Not in it
you
at
had
all.
this guy called Kraven the Hunter.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
Part of the trick with the series was trying to figure out how these storylines could fit together.
How to combine
because
a whole decade together.
Yeah, because you couldn't just treat them as individual instances, or else it'd be like, 3 pages devoted to the symbiote saga, 4 pages devoted to Kraven's Last Hunt. Like, I had to find ways to kind of put those together. And when I originally planned it out, I did have Eddie Brock in there, but sorry, just to twist the knife a little bit. But then I realized I couldn't have a satisfying character arc,
right,
with him. And then lead into the Kraven.
Eddie is sort of a character who just appears out of nowhere and says, "Oh, hey, you're that writer I've heard about."
By the way,
yeah. And it wouldn't do him justice. Frankly, Eddie Brock deserves Venom life story.
Ooh.
Oh yes,
That's something I
know
a lot of fans here would like to see.
Oh yeah, like I was going to say though, like I loved what you did with Venom in that, even though it wasn't Eddie Brock.
Ray Venom.
Just the way like you tied in, like Kraven's Last Hunt with the black suit. And then I also love the final shot, and I think in issue 4, where Kraven's about to kill himself, sort of like what Eddie did originally, but this time the symbiote saves him. So I just love that like parallel you did.
But to that point, that's where the story's really dovetailed perfectly to have that happen, because when the symbiote comes to Eddie, he's at his lowest. When Kraven's last hunt ends with him basically, with the gun in his mouth, killing himself. So to have to transpose that storyline back over onto Kraven just made a lot of sense, and being able to do it in such a way, and then hopefully have the fun reveal a couple issues later of Kravenom. Right. Looks much better in print than when you say it out loud.
Oh yes.
And I will say another part I really liked about your issue 3 with introducing the symbiote is that when Peter comes back with the symbiote and he's wearing it for a bit on Earth, I like the fact that in the original series, how it originally happened in the comics, is that Peter took it to Reed Richards. He's like, I'm feeling kind of weird, don't know why. He's like, Reed Richards like, oh, this thing you're wearing is alive, and Peter freaked out. But I really like that in your story, Reed's like, oh, that thing's alive, and Peter's like, I know, I'm a scientist, like I'm not an idiot.
Yeah.
Like, so that was a really interesting twist.
So he also said he was fun. Old and that he needed it too.
Yeah, that was fun to try and figure out what his age and that timeline, how that would affect his decision making, and he would treat it as a boost, right? He would treat it as a thing to compensate for the fact that he's getting older, and of course he would study it. So the Venom stuff really lined up quite well with the story. I think I was pretty lucky that those pieces kind of fell together the way they did.
Yeah, no, it was a very unique take on it all, and I very much enjoyed it. And
you are all forgetting possibly my greatest Venom.
Are we?
Yes, which is the variant cover I did for Venom.
Yes,
in which you learned to draw Venom from me.
Yes,
where he has like the Snapchat dog, tongue on it. Yeah,
yeah, a human tongue.
Very funny. Yeah. So
which
that
I insist on drawing at all times.
Yeah. So that is actually all of your Venom comics from there. So,
I just wanted to I also mentioned that in the last issue where Kraven makes his appearance, I really love.
Oh, sure, go ahead. Yeah.
I really love the fact that you made the Venom symbiote still heroic in the end with Peter, and I thought that was a super nice touch to show that Venom isn't all bad. It isn't a lonely alien on a world that was sort of abandoned, but it still does care for Peter and it still wants to help.
Yeah, and that was my callback to what the Spider-Man.
Yeah,
which
where it saves him from the bell.
Yeah, it hit me really hard when I was young. Like just the concept that this thing that the reader up to that point can just view as kind of evil, purely based on kind of like appearance and the fact that it is a symbiotic relationship, the fact that there's love there and there's caring.
Yeah, and that's something I've always loved about the Venom symbiote is that it is basically its own character. It's not just a suit; it's got its own feeling.
Yeah, so. Yeah. There's jealousy, there's hate, there's which is just like Ryan Stegman.
Speaking of Ryan Stegman, so that is all of your Venom like books that you've written.
We're going
to talk about right, of course. Are we going to see a Daredevil and Venom crossover maybe in the future? Maybe.
There's nothing. There's nothing that I have planned out right now.
We're just saying that Daredevil.
I'm not saying no forever, but
Daredevil is Catholic, and Eddie is going through a bit of a crisis of faith, and he is also Catholic, or was at least. There's something there you could do.
I can say that the books will touch at some point.
Nice.
I'm not saying there's like a big crossover or anything, but
of course.
But like a little kiss. Daredevil giving a little kiss to Venom.
Oh, nice. I like that.
Yeah.
So prior to this podcast, we were actually going to find the times you called out to Ryan and Donnie. But it seems like all of your tweets kind of just disappeared. We're just like, what happened there?
I'm sorry, what?
So we were.
Say it
So we
again.
were. Sorry. We were actually going to find all of the times online where you, like make fun of Donnie and Chip, or like Donnie and.
I've never done that, but
Okay.
so you're saying the things I never did disappeared?
Oh, of course.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. So
He's a
it's like on a
professional.
serious note, though. You three guys usually like joke around with each other. What's the actual like relationship there? Like we want to get into.
Some people
deep
would
here,
call
like,
you
why
friends.
do you know-
Some people would call you mortal
Yeah.
enemies. It's
Well, online I'd say we're kind of like friendly enemies. In real life, we're enemies,
okay.
Oh, of course.
but we play up the friendly part online. No, I mean, I love Donnie.
Hey, you even
like I said,
you did that comic with him with Doctor Strange.
yeah, it's like one of our
Yeah.
favorite things ever. That was a ton of fun, and I've read a ton of Donnie stuff. I love it. God Country, Thanos, Cosmic Ghost Rider, Redneck, Doctor Strange, Silver Surfer Black, Baby Teeth, Guardians of the Galaxy, the Thor stuff is great. Death of the Inhumans, I really enjoyed. I've read a lot of his stuff. I haven't quite got around to Venom,
Oh, wow.
but there's something about the book that doesn't entice me. But it's not Donnie. It's not Donnie. I want to be very clear. Like I've read basically everything Donnie's written, except for Venom.
Well,
Oh wait, no,
there was
that's not true. There's also one other thing.
Oh.
That's absolute carnage.
Of course.
Yeah, no.
Now-
Actually, you know what? I'm lying. I did read Venom Island
Oh.
Have you read?
because my
have
good
you
friend
read
Mark
issue
Bagley was drawing it.
25?
Issue what? Sorry.
Issue 25, the one that's not out yet. That we're dying to read. That's been pushed back because we're struggling here.
They send them to me. Just a second.
You just want to, send the file our way in the DM?
Well, just a second. I'm just going to take a look and see
Okay.
see if it showed up here.
It's an exclusive, folks.
Exclusive, yeah.
I have Venom 26.
Whoa,
Lord Jesus.
Even
Lord
farther in the
Jesus.
future.
Man, God. Well, we are very jealous. We are on the edge of our seats, but we understand everything that's going
Sorry,
on.
just a second. I'm going to open it up.
Oh, all right.
Let me just kind of go through it and see. Oh, hey, Ryan didn't draw this.
Ryan didn't.
Oh.
What?
Wow, it looks great.
Yeah, it was even Koala who did the art.
Oh, it looks really good.
Oh. Would you
Oh,
say
there's
it's
a fucking
better than
gorgeous splash page in here. Man, yeah. Whoever this
Man.
is should be the permanent
This is
Venom
awful,
artist.
folks. This is awful.
Oh, I can't believe they bring back this character. This is awesome. Sorry, I'm just going through it right now.
Exclusive here.
Just
You
going through
heard
it
it
now.
here, folks. You heard it here.
Oh, fucking hell! That is a cliffhanger and a half.
Oh my goodness.
That's crazy. Wow, I don't know.
Donnie
how
loves those cliffhangers. He gets us every time with those.
You're getting a
Ah.
slight teaser, folks, right here.
I don't know how Donnie's going to write his way out of that one.
Awful.
Yeah. Huh. Like he's missing both hands now. It's kind of nuts.
What?
Anyways.
Both hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spoil us harder.
Yeah,
though, Darcy.
so I probably have Venom 25 somewhere. 26 just showed up this week, I think.
All right, excellent.
Yeah,
All
but,
right, so I think that's all of the topics we want to talk about. Do it?
Well, no, I want to ask.
Questions?
There's one more question.
Sure,
I
go
want to. Hey, hold on. There's one more thing I want to ask about Mr. Ryan Stegman, because there was a series of tweets he made a while back. Chris Anka actually asked him, "Is the symbiote supposed to act like clothing? Where's the fabric lines then? If not, is it like a second skin? Where's Venom's dick then?" And Ryan Stegman actually answered that. And he said, "I always draw the dick, and the editors take it out." But hold on. Just literally a day before that, because that was May 9th, 2018, and literally one day before that, on May 8th, 2018,
Have the receipts.
Donnie Cates made his own tweet that said, "True story. The final scene in the first issue was scripted as Eddie being nude, but Stegman put clothes on him because he's a coward." So,
Yeah.
is it a coincidence that Ryan rhymes with lion? Or
I mean, that is probably a coincidence, but he is also a liar. Yeah, like Ryan likes to pretend like, oh, I'm really gonna do things, but like he's constantly covering Eddie up. Like he actually, to be telling the truth, like the colorist erases the nipple tassels.
Absolute coward.
Because Ryan says it's an affront to God to show nipples, man or woman. It's a little weird. Like he likes to play, play the game like he's this cool, liberal, forward-thinking kind of dude online. But yeah. So when you see the original pages, you're like, all right, come on, buddy. Like you clearly got some fixations there. I can clear it up. Venom's dick is his tongue.
All right.
Even more reasons.
It's very much like if you've ever owned a dog, when a dog gets all horned up and then it kind of like what comes out looks kind of weird and pinkish and red and raw. That's exactly what's happening with Venom.
That's canon now, boys.
Yeah. Every time the tongue comes out of his mouth, that's horny time.
Man, you think they'd have to make the Venom movie R-rated for that?
Yep,
well, they should.
All right, so I think we are good. Do we want to start on our own questions now? We got just a few questions, and like we'll ask a few, and then like
here's what we'll do right now, audience in the Wave podcast channel. Go ahead and start asking some questions. When we'll pick some out to ask Mr. Chip, and
only if they're good.
Only if they're good. And in the meantime, we're going to ask some of our own questions.
Which are confirmed good.
Yeah, confirmed good.
But we're going to ask them anyway.
All right.
So basically, here, first question: what would you name your own symbiote?
Yeah, we have. There's like Riot, there's Venom, there's Carnage, Toxin, then the newest one, Sleeper. Yeah. So lots of different symbiote names.
Yeah,
all edgy,
they're all pretty edgy. They're all pretty kind of like '90s extreme, right?
Yeah,
for the most part.
Like they all sound like they could be skateboard companies.
More or less.
That's true.
So I'm gonna lean into it, and I won't call myself Santa Cruz, but I'll call myself Cruz. Cruz.
Ooh, I like that. That's good.
That's a good symbiote name.
All right,
I like it.
We're waiting for the Cruz solo comic.
Let's go.
Yeah.
So next question: if you had written the Venom book, who would the main villain be?
Yeah, because Donnie's got the whole Null thing going on, but
this whole new character called Null,
But if you had written,
I'm like Donnie's like he likes the big stuff. He likes like and it's like Galactus, but there's like 5 of them. That's kind of where Donnie's head is usually at. I'm a bit more kind of down to earth. I think Venom's main enemy in my Venom run would just be sadness.
Oh wow!
I like that.
Deep.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, but like Galactus-sized sadness.
Galactus-sized sadness.
A lot of sad.
Yeah, I like that.
Venom the sadness. So
for our next question, for Absolute Carnage, if you had written a tie-in, what would it be about?
Which you should have, I think, but if you had to.
Again, I would have to read Absolute Carnage to be
That's true.
Question. Probably.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I can't even begin to. Yeah. Sorry.
So
it's all good.
Next question: how did you get into writing, and did you have anyone who inspired you when you were growing up?
So now here's the heavy-hitting question. Now,
yeah, nobody inspired me. I'm a self-made man.
I like it.
I've never read a book in my life. I just looked at books and I said I can fucking do that, and I just started writing.
Wow,
just like that.
Next question. What was it like working with Mark Bagley on Spider-Man Life Story?
I had nightmares almost every night. Because what happened is, so I pitched Life Story, and I worked with the editor and kind of developing the for it, and we realized at some point that each issue would have to be 30 pages. Like, there's just too much story. So that kind of limited us in terms of like what artists we could bring on board, because who's fast enough to do that? Because they really wanted it to come out on a certain month, and so Bagley was freed up, and so they brought him in. I'm like, well, this is amazing. It really legitimizes the book. But Bagley, super fast normally, saw that they were 30-page issues, and he was like, oh, I feel like I'm starting, a couple steps behind here, so I'm going to kind of speed up to so we can get ahead on the book. And so we just started sending in like 2 fully penciled pages a day. And it's a very complicated book to write. So I shit myself. I actually started having nightmares about not being able to keep up with them. I've never sent in a script late. Like as an artist myself, like the idea of leaving an artist hanging is just is terrifying. And so yeah, I remember some really, really long runs just to kind of keep up with Bagley. And there's also the weird thing too, like it's Mark Bagley, and like sometimes you have to give a note. Yeah. You have to give like, hey, this is a great drawing, but the character should look more angry. Very hard to summon up the courage to give Mark Bagley an art note. Because he's Mark Bagley. Yeah. But he's so professional too. He's just like, yeah, okay, and within 5 minutes, like it's redrawn. He's so fast and so good.
His art in that book was just absolutely gorgeous. Like
absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah. I got to see some art from an book of Bagley's, and it's even better. Like he's just I don't know how he does it, but he just gets better and better.
How do writers come to you when they want artist changes for books you're doing the art for?
Well, really, I've only ever worked with Matt Fraction in terms of like writing. Like the only other time, really, with Donnie on that little Spider-Man Strange 2-pager. So with Matt Fraction, we really trust each other, and I don't show him anything until the book's done. Oh. Like when it's colored and lettered, I send it to him because I kind of want to get his reaction to the whole thing. Because I draw it for him and he writes it for me. It's that kind of book. And because we own it, like it's our thing. We can just do whatever we want with it, right? Very rare. Like sometimes he'll say, "Oh shit," like I kind of need this to happen on this page, or mostly he just wants to add things. Like, can we add a character in the background doing this, or a joke about this? And that's always fine, because as long as it makes the product better, I'm okay with it. I hear people giving art notes and art changes that are just to kind of hear themselves talk, really. And
right, yeah.
Is this actually a good note? Is this a thing that's going to make the book better? And also, is it worth the amount of time that the artist is going to have to put in on it?
All right. Well, that's very interesting.
Yeah. All right, guys. I think we're going to start. We do have a few fan questions, and then we'll just wrap it up from there.
Yeah, go for it. I got time.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Not all of these are symbiote related, but I think we'll ask most of them anyway. We have time. So,
yeah, because believe it or not, a lot of folks are asking about your run on Daredevil, and we're like, we don't know who that is. We don't read those books. So.
there was that one variant. There was a variant that one time where Daredevil had a symbiote. He had the Carnage symbiote.
Oh, of course. I think I bought that. I didn't read it.
True.
I'm sorry.
So I'm looking through here. We have a user. He goes, "Hey Chip, one last question. What's your personal opinion on Wade's Daredevil?"
On Wade's Daredevil, it's amazing. It was exactly what the book needed at the time. Like I think the combination of him and Samney and Polito as well, it's inspired. Like that's a title that can really take a swerve in tone, and I think it came along at the right time, because like before that it was Bendis and Brubaker, and they kept it very grounded, very gritty, very noir, and yeah, it was time to kind of breathe some new life into.
It was a bit more of a lighthearted take on Daredevil, which I loved. So
it was, but also like the lightheartedness became kind of part of the story as well. Mm-hmm. Like he was clearly like covering for his kind of past mistakes and putting on a happy face in light of what happened before, right?
Yeah.
It's a great take, and
I definitely bought that Daredevil, and I have not bought your Daredevil.
Wow,
Wait for the trades.
it's not a
Wait
not a
for the
thing.
trades.
That's not a thing you needed to say out
It was
loud.
not. I wanted to be honest with you.
Well, good. Yeah. Sure. I mean, that's one way of looking at it. It's like me. It's like me walking into the house and saying to my wife, "Wow, you look ugly today." Sorry, I just got to be honest. Like, there's nothing that precipitated that. There's no need for me to say it, but I just have to be honest, I guess.
Just gotta be honest.
So, Tyler, would you like to pick another fan question?
Sure. This one, Mr. Siri, Call Dr. Doom, is asking, says, hey, I always wondered, was that Reed Richards that restored Dr. Doom's memories in the 2-in-1 annual, the original 616 Mr. Fantastic?
Here are the specific nerd questions we're getting into now.
Yeah, I mean, I kept that pretty vague, partly because I knew that Reed was going to be coming back in Dan Slott's relaunch of FF. From my point of view as the writer, yes, that was the original Reed, popping his head in there and doing that for Doom. And that was a really fun issue to work on. Like Declan Shalvey and Jordi Belair just killed it on the art, and getting to kind of play with Hickman's Council of Reeds was a lot of fun.
All right, so here's my next one I'll pick. Someone really wants you to tell their friend Cam to go eat shit.
Who's asking that?
Burial,
I think his name is. Yeah.
Burial. Burial. Cam is a great friend of mine, so you can frankly go eat shit.
Oh. When I told you,
Yes,
when I asked you to say that in Vancouver, you did. You told her to eat shit. Oh.
Well, at the time, Cam and I were on the. Since then, we've grown a lot closer, like a lot closer.
Oh wow!
Like incredibly close,
Oh.
and so yeah, he's a good dude.
Okay, let's just do a few more. Someone really wants to know what would the Cruise symbiote look like?
Oh, man, it would kind of be it'd be like reverse Venom.
Reverse Venom. Okay.
Some sort of
kind
anti-venom.
of not like anti-venom,
Oh,
not
no.
anti-venom.
Okay.
Basically, his entire body, his entire like the skin, you could say, is tongue textured. It looks like a tongue, and when he opens his mouth, it's black inside.
I'm pretty sure I've seen fan art like that before on certain websites. But
I've probably drawn it. I've probably drawn it.
Okay.
Doom Island Cabana Boy asks, hey Chip, you've mentioned that your original pitch for Life Story would have used Reed Richards as a point of view character. What did you initially have in mind for that storyline?
It was a bit of a larger story. I wanted Reed Richards and Logan to kind of be the point characters that you kind of follow through the history. Logan, because he doesn't really age, so it would be about him kind of dealing with like the loss of people as they do age around him, and him just constantly chasing the new hot young redhead that's in town when the other redheads get too old for him. But yeah, I don't want to give away too much of it because like maybe one day I'll go back to Life Story as a concept or as a universe and play out the rest of the story. But it definitely it leans into more about what would happen in that kind of timeline. But yeah, anything else would be kind of spoiling a possible future story. So
yeah, like I would love.
I won't do that. I will spoil Venom issue 26, but I won't spoil that.
So I would love to see like more of Life Story. Like I just like the concept. Like we could have like Life Story, Logan, and all that stuff. But yeah, like I would buy that. And I feel like the reception for the Spider-Man one was really good. So
yeah,
hopefully we can see that.
It was really well received, and Marvel wants more of them.
Oh, sounds good.
But I just can't write them for the most part. Like it was an incredible amount of work doing the Spider-Man one. Like I had to reread all of Amazing Spider-Man just to kind of get a good handle on what to include, and figuring out the timelines was very tricky.
Right.
Like I think it was suggested to me like a Fantastic Four life story, and my brain exploded because I'm just like I had so much difficulty handling one main character, let alone four.
Right,
in those kind of space restrictions, that I told him that I'd like to read them. Like I would love it if Donnie did like a Venom life story, or Al Ewing a Hulk life story, and maybe I could come back and do the covers for them.
You could do like a Daredevil one, right? Yeah,
that one would actually, that's kind of the one that intrigues me the most. But it feels weird while doing the Daredevil book.
Right, of course.
Like maybe because similar to Spider-Man, like they asked me to make it a Spider-Man book, and part of the reasoning was, well, you just finished a run on Spectacular Spider-Man and people seem to like it, so you've got a built-in fan base of that, and you can give them some new Spider-Man content. So maybe the same would happen with Daredevil when I eventually get kicked off the book.
So hopefully not soon, though, right?
Hey, who knows?
Who knows?
Well,
who knows?
Another question. Well, I was going to ask this question, but Zygon is asking for his buddy Matt, and if Matt's not here, I'm sorry, I don't think we're asking that. So let's move on to a different question. Patchkin asks, yeah, you know what? We're professionals here. You got to be here. This is exclusive.
That's why we read all of our guests' books beforehand,
So Patchkin asks, hey Chip, what's your opinion on Eddie's original tenure as Venom? Was he someone you liked a lot as a Spidey rogue, or do you think otherwise?
Yeah, I mean, like I was hooked basically with the Web of Spider-Man issue with the hand pushing Peter. Like at that point, I was like, what the fuck? Is Spider Sense going to go off? And like, I was pretty young when it came out, and I was intrigued and excited about it. And then, when he first appeared in Amazing, I was blown away. Like I thought it was just like so cool and dark and interesting. Like following up, because you got to remember, like the year previous, like Kraven's Last Hunt had just come out, and that was Spider-Man at his darkest and was well received. So to have Venom kind of pop up on the scene as like kind of a new villain that could kind of embrace that dark side of the Spider-Man mythos was awesome. Like I think that first like story with Venom is one of the all-time greats. For me as a reader, became a bit of a law of diminishing returns when every subsequent appearance, as I was reading Amazing Spider-Man, I was just like, okay, all right, like
it's Venom again. Sell more issues.
Yeah, like
let's go.
He was very much designed by McFarlane, like a McFarlane drawing, and like I followed McFarlane from the Hulk to Spider-Man, and it really had that kind of like gross kind of feel of the texture. And so when Eric Larson took over, I'm like, yeah, this is good. Like I was still enjoying it. Like kind of the original Venom Island storyline from there was a lot of fun, but he became a lot more cartoony and didn't feel quite as menacing as he did under McFarlane's
They definitely
art.
turned him on the anti-hero route pretty fast.
Which of course makes
he was
sense
super
for like, the
popular
popularity of the character. So
yeah, for sure. Because like once you port a character over to their own title, like almost inherently they have to become like an anti-hero.
Yeah,
like any book with a villain as its lead, you have to empathize with the villain a bit more so than you do in their normal appearances. And so he by the time he transformed into more of an anti-hero, I was kind of out. Like I tapped out of reading comics at that point, kind of Clone Saga-ish. Maybe it was like the third or fourth twist reveal, and I was off to college.
Speaking of the Clone Saga, have you ever read Life of Riley? So like, this is the thing that I've been reading like the past few weeks while we're in quarantine.
I did.
Yeah, see, that stuff is so interesting, and how it was just one clusterfuck of ideas, and somehow they just got out of it. I don't know. It was very fascinating stuff.
I read it while I was doing Life Story. Like once we hit the clones.
Really? Okay.
Because what happened was once we hit the clone stuff in the outline, the editor Tom Brevoort said, "No clones." I'm like, "What? Like you can't do a '90s issue about Spider-Man and not refer to clones." And then he said, "Look, I have some PTSD from that time because I was here in the Marvel offices when that was happening." I'm like, "Really?" And then I had to present him with an idea that would work. And so I started doing a lot more clone research outside of just reading the books, and I started reading the Life of Riley blog entries, and then Tom, the editor, like made an appearance in it because I think his suggestion was time travel.
Yeah, it's like the time loop between him and Ben, where they're the same person or something.
Yeah, something like that, which actually would have worked and would have been a very clean out until it, obviously kind of exploded and got kind of crazy. But it is stuff like that is really fascinating, the behind the scenes stuff. Like I love reading like the Marvel history book that Sean Howe wrote a few years ago. Is fascinating, just like all the behind the scenes stuff. Like anything, I think it's kind of like Saturday Night Live when you read like an oral history of Saturday Night Live, and like it's just craziness and it's cocaine and it's backstabbing and it's horrible and all this drama. And then the closer you get to modern times, it's like, oh no, those things are actually kind of calmed down now, because people are a bit more professional now and they kind of know what they're getting into. It's more of a machine, and I think Marvel's kind of like that as well. Like there's not a lot of drama, which I think. Right. I think sometimes like the guys in charge kind of want there to be more drama because like a lot of good books can come from that. But at the retreats or the summits, we're just like, that's a great idea. Here's a tidbit on how it can get better. Thank you for that. Like it's a lot nicer now than it was back in the day. As reading the Life of Riley blog is like just seeing all the shit they went through and like all the changes and the fact that like the final product, no one from the original product was on the book at that point. Like it's such a mindfuck, like just how an industry like that like can change the creative all the way through a run. It's really weird.
Well,
like really weird because there's a lot of stuff that we as younger folks don't really understand, because like they brought back like Norman Osborn, who like at that point had been dead for 20 plus years, but now we're used to him in every movie and book and video game. But just the whole thing was it just blew my mind how like amazing it is. Y'all need to go read that. It's 35 parts. It's like a small novel worth, but it's worth it if you love like behind the scenes Spider-Man stuff.
Yeah, all that stuff is great. I mean, I forget what website did like an oral history like last year, and reading all the decisions that went on behind the scenes of that as well. Yeah, it's all pretty wild.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should almost start wrapping up. Let's ask one or two more questions. Whips asks, what would Venom order from Applebee's?
Okay.
I mean, okay, so probably jalapeno poppers.
Oh, of course.
Makes sense.
But the waitress would be like just an appetizer, sir, and be like, no, I want a main course. And there'd be a whole argument because like, well, we don't offer it as a main course, and Eddie Brock would be like, well, then bring me 2 appetizers on 1 plate and charge me for 2. And they're like, well, we don't do that. And so it'd just be a huge argument back and forth until finally.
You don't want to piss off
Venom. Venom would kill them.
As you do.
And then make some sort of crack about how they're the popper now, or I don't know, something like. Donnie would write it much better.
Turd in the wind, poppers in the wind, something funny like that.
Yeah.
So another user asks from KC1250, if I may ask, do you have any ideas you didn't end up using for Marvel 2-in-1?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much.
Can you share them though?
I'm trying to. Like, so in my original plan for the book, like I do have a scene in the book where basically like Sue appears and saves them in kind of like a dream haze.
Isn't Sue's
kind of thing
disappearing though?
Yes, very very good point. And so I did have a storyline where I want like Sue or Reed to show up, and just like kind of battle weary and basically be like, you have to take the kids. Like I've got to go save Reed, take the kids, and then basically leave Franklin and Val with Ben and Johnny, and then disappear again. And so the book was going to shift more towards Ben and Johnny learning to co-parent kids that were basically traumatized and abandoned by their parents. So it becomes a more of a Fantastic Four book again. giving Ben and Johnny something to kind of like come together on and fight over, and kind of raising those kids while Reed and Sue were missing in action. But then, I mean, I got the news that Fantastic Four was coming back. I think around the time I was writing issue 3 or 4, and so I had a meeting with the editor and Dan Slott, and Dan kind of planned. I told him what my plans were, and so I had to jettison some stuff, and I incorporated some stuff from Dan, and I wanted to make sure that they lined up enough and that there was a decent kind of handoff. And then I got to kind of as a nice gift on the other end of it, I had the final 2 issues where I could actually have Mr. Fantastic and Invisible Woman be the co-stars in the Marvel 2-in-1. So yeah, I don't think I ever told anyone that was kind of the found out that they were going to be aged up and returned with Reed and Sue.
Right, and there's one question I want to ask. You guys, this is going to be the last question I'll ask, and you guys can choose if you want to do one yourselves. But Mo Velvet asks, I know Donnie was actually asked this question, so I want to hear your opinion on it. If there were 2 guys on the moon and one killed the other with a rock, would that be fucked up or what?
I don't think it'd be fucked up at all. I think it makes perfect sense.
Okay.
Like, you want to be the only person on the moon.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah. I mean,
and what else? I'm sorry. Am I missing something? What else are you going to kill them? A rock.
Makes
a rock,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
like, you're not going to kill them with a gun or a knife. Like, you don't have.
Gravity doesn't work in space. Everyone, idiot.
They don't give astronauts guns. I'm pretty sure.
You got the flag you could impale them with too.
That's true.
You know.
True, but you gotta get to the flag.
Oh, of course.
It's like, you'd be like, where did we put the flag when we landed all those years ago?
Find
and is it sharp enough to kill a man?
Some valid points.
Yeah.
You
don't want 2 people on the moon. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, Chip, I have a question. What do you have any other hobbies you like to do, or anything you do outside of comics?
Yeah, I had to kind of force myself to have a proper hobby. Comics was kind of all-consuming, and anytime I would try and do some sort of creative endeavor off to the side, it would end up being comics again. So I bought myself a piano and put it in my studio, and so I just kind of bang on the keys and warble out some tunes when I just want to do something that isn't creative.
Are you actually making songs, or are you just banging on random keys?
No, I just bought a bunch of songbooks from a used bookstore, and I'll just pull them out. And like I self-taught when I was a teenager. I can read like bar chords. So I can fake a song. I can't really read the music, but if the chords are there, I can easily pretend like I know what I'm doing. But yeah, I never play for anyone. That's the other thing. Like, I always make sure this thing that's just for me. Like, I never play for my wife. I never play for my friends. I'm just like, no, this is the
secret Zdarsky symphony.
Yeah, this is chip time. Although I guess I performed a slightly different version of Maneater for a Daredevil promotional video. When they announced the book, and that's the only public appearance.
Cool.
Okay, all right. I got one more question, and this is from a fan, and I think we will wrap it up there. Okay.
All right.
What made you decide on the body swap twist in your Doom 2099 one shot?
What made me decide on it?
That's supposed that comes from Doom Island Cabana Boy. So.
I just thought it was an interesting idea. Like, the 2099 relaunch stuff was kind of an opportunity to kind of take these kind of classic ideas and put a twist on them. And having written Doom and Reed in Marvel 2-in-1, I really liked the idea that the twist was going to be the fact that it was Reed's body that was in the future with Doom's mind. So it was like the 2 of them kind of fused together.
That does sound interesting, and I've not actually read it, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I've just spoiled it for you.
It sounds good. I like it.
Yeah, I love the original Doom 29. Any of you ever read it? But the premise is basically that Doom shows up out of nowhere in the year 2099, and and it's all about him trying to rise back up to power, and questioning whether or not he's actually Doom, and then encountering a Doom of 2099.
Okay.
Basically, like, yeah, you're not Doom. You're like a clone that me and my lover we play a game with, and so it was kind of a fascinating, kind of a long form story. I think that storyline wraps around issue 25, but I always really appreciated that premise, and so we kind of ported that over to this line where it's Doom struggling to kind of lift himself up out of the muck and piece things together while taking on the Doom of that year. So go check it out. I think it's on Marvel Unlimited. Could be by now.
Really
yes,
expected
it
you
should.
to pick a Venom related question, Aaron, for the last one, but I guess not. So
Well,
thanks for that.
there's some people that are asking, so okay. All right. Well, I think we are going to wrap it up there. So like Mr. Zdarsky, thank you for hanging out with us for about an hour, and thank you for going through all of ours. Oh, like we haven't read this, like we haven't read that, so thanks for just dealing with this. So
no, thanks for contributing.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for opening our eyes about the lying Ryan Stegman too. So a little different.
I mean, yeah, he's pulled the wool over a lot of people's eyes.
Yeah, we appreciate
it. I think the time has come for him to reap what he's sown. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And also maybe become a better artist. So
take some tips.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and
okay.
I guess that sort of wraps up today's episode. We won't have a monthly comic review because there's something going on in the comic industry right now, but should be back pretty soon. And also, I know Orion. I want to thank Orion for letting me, the Canadian, host this podcast. I know he had a Venom book club podcast series he wanted to start that is going to be postponed for a bit. You can listen to We Are Venomaniacs on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Music / iTunes, Google Play Music, and YouTube. And we can also be found on Twitter at WAV_podcast. You can check out our Discord server where you can geek out with a community of Venomaniacs like us and, Chip.
And our fun emotes. Tons of fun emotes here, guys.
Yep. As always, I want to thank my fellow co-hosts, Carlos and Aaron, for joining me today.
No problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, and of course, Chip, our special guest.
My pleasure.
And thanks to the Venom site for permitting us to use this podcast under the TVS banner and all of your generous support. And finally, thank you, loyal listeners and fellow Venomaniacs. You guys make an awesome community, and it's an honor to be your voice on the airwaves. Together, we are Venomaniacs.
Thanks for coming to Brock Talk.
Yeah, we need to change its name. Brock Talk.
Already stopped the recording.
And now, a word from one of our partners at The Collective, a network of superhero podcasts.
WhenItWasCool.com is your source for the best in retro pop culture. When It Was Cool features articles and podcasts on retro TV and movies, toys, action figures, pro wrestling, food, video games, and more. Hit the Patreon button to support us and get instant access to hundreds of premium podcasts and features. Family friendly and fun. WhenItWasCool.com.